What's going on, guys? My name is Arrow, and in today's video, I want to talk about getting you a tattoo. So, what is a tattoo? A tattoo is a thing that you can apply to your passive tree to modify a node in a deterministic way. You can get a tattoo that makes your plus 10 strength travel passive become plus 15 life regeneration instead. This allows incredible modifiability of builds and I think way more flexibility than we've seen in quite a while. The truth about these is that every build should be using as many as they possibly can at all times. So here's why. Let's say that you have 10 travel passives on your build. The easiest thing to do is to just turn them into 10 2% maximum life nodes. 20% maximum life, for example, on my current Hydrosphere build, which has 4,000 life, would be 406 life. That's the equivalent of anointing several life notables. It's incredibly powerful. If those travel nodes are simply wasted, you're basically throwing away 400 life. Now, the simple options don't end at just adding life to your build. 10 free passives, which most builds have access to at least that, can give you something like 60% flask effect duration. On a build with some sort of flash generation like the Trader or flash charge on crit, this can pretty much just turn any build into a Pathfinder. Another fun one is 80% projectile speed. They're 8% per, so I probably wouldn't do all 10, but to anyone who's ever played a projectile-based build who then got a little bit of projectile speed, they know it is one of the biggest quality of life increases that you can get. Something like Cobra Lash, Winter Orb, these builds get a little bit of projectile speed and suddenly you feel like a god. Plus 4 all attributes. I think this one is super underrated. Let's say you have 100 int. You can turn that 100 int in travel points into 40 strength, 40 dex, and 40 int. Now, you're not losing all the int, but you are gaining around a tier 3 suffix from 2 slots, which makes it so you maybe can take some pressure off one of your rings and really just make gearing simpler. Simplifying gearing will allow you to go for more damage. So even though you're only getting maybe 40 strength and 40 dex from all these travel passes, you're going to now be able to get a ring that has elemental damage with attacks because you don't have to have 3 tier 1 suffixes on it. Then there are things like reservation efficiency, which is obviously strong for obvious reasons. If you get 10 of those, then you could drop 10% somewhere else. You can get 2% spell suppress on a travel node, which means 20% spell suppression really can ease up your gearing. Some of these passives have a requirement that it's dex, int, or strength, so something like projectile speed might be difficult to get if you're on the left side of the tree, but these nodes do still exist. So even for a build that's maybe dex starved on the left side of the tree, there are a few dex passives you can take and then just get dex on your gear. So I've been explaining these in sets of 10, like you could just grab 10 int, 10 dex, or 10 strength, and it's not always necessarily the case that you can get 10 maybe dex travel nodes if you're an inquisitor, but if you can use these, they're almost always stronger than 10 attributes unless you're attribute stacking. So the reality is, in the end game, we should all be taking way more attributes on gear, getting tier 1 rolls with catalysts so that we can use even more tattoos. I think crafting attribute stacking gear is going to be strong for people that aren't even stacking attribute. For example, on an endgame ring or a strength side of the tree, maybe chieftain, you might want to grab 60 strength on that ring just so you can use 6 more tattoos without really losing anything. 6 strength tattoos is the equivalent of 12% chance to explode. These nodes are incredibly powerful and grant you a lot of things that you can't get in the places that you would get dex. Like most of these stats aren't available as ring suffixes. But if you grab a ring suffix that's tier 1, that's now 6 of these interesting things that you can get. Let's now talk about some of the juicier ones besides just the travel nodes. So our good friend Grimro has created this spreadsheet alongside of Elishar to try to build a chart that gives you an idea of which ones are worth the most. And I'll link this down in the description. It's just a Google Doc that has some color coding based on what the value of each one is. This will help you when you're deciding which ones that you want to take from the mechanic, if you're still doing it, and can give you kind of a quick glimpse of how powerful each thing is. So shout out to Grim for making this, this wonderful spreadsheet. So if we just hop into the PoE Ninja tattoo page to see like what the most powerful ones are, obviously the charges are going to be high at the top. +1 max power charges on the Hydro build would be incredible, but it's currently 12 divines, which is a huge amount of money. It's more than I've spent on my entire build. So I'm probably not going to be putting that in this one, but in endgame builds, the fact that we just have access for one notable to +1 power charge is phenomenal. Something really important about these is that you can anoint, say, beef, and then you can allocate this notable with a tattoo as an anoint, and you will get the effect of the tattoo, not the strength. So for a build like mine, which actually doesn't have easy access to a 30 int node, here we have strength and dex, I'd have to come down here and get Thief's Craft, which I could do, but it wouldn't be very efficient to path here just for +1. So I could anoint this if I wanted to. I'm not going to because we need power charge, but I could anoint this and have +1 gems. So here's another super strong one, Skills Fire and Additional Projectile. There's actually no limit on how many of these you can have, but what it does require is that you have 7 connected and allocated passives. So there is some pretty big cost, and there are a few places that it's really strong. For example, right here, if you have this, and this connected, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that is 7 passives. So most builds that are coming through here that are projectile based are already going to have all of these allocated. Maybe not this one. I usually don't take these. If I'm going to take any, I take this accuracy up here because it has crit. But for 1 point and -10 dex, you can get +1 projectile. Now, of course, the item costs money, so it's not completely free. But as far as investment into your build, it's free. And you can get a couple of those. You could also do one here. This isn't nearly as efficient because maybe you don't want a chance to avoid being stunned or damage over time with bow skills, but this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So what you could do is you could anoint, you could take Prowess and Thief's Craft and possibly use tattoos on those, or maybe you just need the stats and you're traveling through here. So now you have 1, 2, 3, 4 already. You might be coming down here to get Forces of Nature. That's 5. So then you basically can just click a couple of these nodes, and now you have +1 projectile again. It's not always going to be efficient, but there are going to be places that it's better or worse for your build. So pay attention to that. You're going to be able to get probably 1 or 2 of these into builds fairly easily. And then after that, the investment probably isn't worth it, but every build is different. Got +1 Frenzy Charge, 7 Divines, +1 Endurance Charge, and +1 Max Fire Res. This is super nice. 3.5 Divines. That's actually not that expensive. Endurance Charge stacking is not the best, but you can do some really fun things with it. Then you have the +1 Gems. Onslaught on hit. This is super powerful. They're about 2.8 Divines right now, and you need to allocate a 30 Dexterity notable. You're only allowed to have 1 attribute notable, so you wouldn't be able to do Prowess and Thief's Craft. Melee hits Fortify. This is not that exciting because you can get chance to Fortify on hit from travel nodes. I don't know why this is 300C, to be honest. I guess maybe for slow hitting builds like a slam could be good. Increased cooldown recovery rate. This is incredibly powerful. Let's take a look at this one and see what the requirement is. So again, another 7 adjacent passive allocated. These are not just adjacent passive skills. They all have to be allocated, which can be a challenge. But if you can fit a few of these into your build, definitely make it easier to gear. Cooldown recovery rate builds have breakpoints, so you can allocate maybe 2 to 3 of these, not need to use boots. Now it opens up a new slot and completely changes the way the builds are made. Here's one that I want to talk about that I think is super underrated for a couple of reasons. Reason number 1, maximum total life recovery per second from Leech actually increases your Leech cap per second. So 80% is a massive amount. Can I copy that? Perfect. So on my build, this is not my current POB, but this is a POB of my Hydrosphere. At this point, 4,000 life, and with my Leech cap, I'm at 815 life leeched per second. So if we go into our Calcs tab and we add 80%, it goes from 800 to 1,400. That is almost double the amount of leech per second for one of these notable. Now, it's not necessarily going to be easy to fit this in because this does require a small strength notable and 7 adjacent passive skills allocated. It may be difficult to get in, but if you can fit this in, doubling your leech is really powerful. And I would pay a decent amount for this. So if I could get this for maybe 1 or 2 points that are not that strong, I'm absolutely putting this in my build, especially for 30C. So that's going to be it for me. I am enjoying the league mechanic. I think the rewards are really not good enough to farm, at least in the 300s where I am right now. Maybe I'm just getting unlucky. I'm really hoping for a buff. GGG, please fix. But I am having a blast with this league. I'm really excited to make builds that are kind of made around these tattoos, unlocking things we've never been able to do before. And I'm currently just blasting legions to make money with Hydrosphere. It is awesome. Using up legions, making a ton of currency with very little investment. Come check out the stream, twitch.tv/AER0___. Like this video, comment, and subscribe if you have not already. It really helps. Thank you so much. And that's it for today. So thank you so much for watching. And as always, take care.